Some men fall in love way before they're ready to say it out loud. Not because they don't feel it, but because saying it makes it real. And real means risk. Real means he could get hurt. So instead of saying the words, he shows you in ways that are a lot easier to miss if you're only listening for, "I love you." A lot of women spend months waiting for a verbal confession while completely missing the confession that's already happening right in front of them, just in a different language. Today we're breaking down 7 signs he secretly loves you, but is afraid to admit it. Stay till the end, because number 6 is the one most women completely overlook, and it might be the most obvious one once you see it. Let's get into it. 1, he gets nervous around you. This one sounds small, but it's actually huge. A man who's confident and relaxed with women he doesn't really care about suddenly turns into a slightly awkward version of himself around you. He fumbles his words. He laughs a little too quickly at things that aren't that funny. He gets weirdly self-conscious about stuff he'd never normally think twice about, like what he's wearing or whether a joke landed the right way. That nervous energy isn't a flaw. It's actually a really good sign, because it usually means you matter more than the average person he's talking to. When the stakes feel low, people are smooth and effortless, because there's nothing to lose. When the stakes feel high, because he actually cares what you think of him. That ease can disappear for a second, and suddenly the same guy who can talk to anyone is tripping over his own sentences around you specifically. If he's a little clumsy around you in a way he clearly isn't around everyone else, that's not weakness. That's him caring more than he wants to show, and honestly, more than he probably realizes he's showing. 2, he remembers everything you say. Pay attention to the small details he brings back up later. A random story you mentioned once, weeks ago, in passing, that you'd practically forgotten telling him. Your coffee order. A tiny preference you casually stated one time and never repeated, like a show you said you wanted to watch, or a place you mentioned wanting to visit someday. Most people don't retain information about things they don't care about, because the brain isn't wired to hold on to details it's decided are unimportant. If a man is quietly cataloging little pieces of you and bringing them up later, unprompted, that's not a coincidence, and it's definitely not just good social skills. That's attention. Real, sustained attention that most people reserve only for things and people that actually matter to them. A man who's emotionally invested listens differently because on some level he wants to know you, not just talk to you or fill silence with you. Remembering the small things is one of the quietest, most consistent signs of love there is, because there's no glory in it, no big gesture, no audience clapping for him. He's just doing it because it matters to him, privately, with no expectation of credit. 3, he shows up when it's inconvenient. Anyone can show up when it's easy. The real signal is what he does when it costs him something. Does he still check on you after a long, exhausting day at work when he'd rather just collapse on his couch? Does he show up to help you move or sit with you when you're sick, even when he'd rather be doing literally anything else, including sleeping? A man who secretly loves you will inconvenience himself for you without making a big deal out of it, because his care for you outweighs his own comfort in that moment. He's not doing it to get credit, and he's usually not even thinking about whether you'll notice. He's often not even fully aware of why he keeps doing it, Why he keeps saying yes when saying no would be so much easier. He just knows that when you need something, sitting it out isn't really an option in his mind, even if he never says that part out loud, and even if he complains a little on the way there. 4. He gets protective without being asked. This is a big one. A man who secretly loves you tends to get quietly protective, even before anything official has been said between you, before any label has been put on what you are to each other. He checks that you got home safe, even if it's just a quick text. He tenses up a little if someone disrespects you, even if he doesn't say anything about it in the moment. He pays attention to who's around you, not in a controlling way, but in a watching your back kind of way, noticing things you might not even notice yourself. This protectiveness often shows up before he's said a single word about his feelings, because protecting someone is instinctive in a way that confessing feelings is not. Confessing feelings requires vulnerability and risk, an actual sentence he has to say out loud that could be met with rejection. Protecting someone can happen quietly, in the background, without ever needing to be announced or acknowledged. If you've noticed him being protective of you in ways that go beyond basic politeness or common decency, that instinct is telling on him, whether he means it to or not. 5. He avoids talking about his feelings directly. Here's the tricky one, because on the surface this looks like the opposite of love. A man who's scared of how much he actually feels will often dodge direct conversations about it entirely. He changes the subject the second things get too real. He jokes his way out of serious moments, turning something meaningful into something light before it gets uncomfortable. He might even downplay how close you two have gotten, almost like he's talking himself out of it in real time, minimizing what's actually happening between you as a defense mechanism. This usually isn't because he doesn't feel anything. It's often because he feels too much, and admitting it means handing you power to hurt him. Power he may have handed someone before and gotten burned. Avoidance, in this specific context, is not always a sign of indifference. Sometimes it's a sign of fear wearing indifference as a disguise, a way of protecting himself while still staying close to you. That doesn't excuse endless avoidance forever, because at some point, a man does need to find the courage to be honest. But it does explain why some of the most obviously invested men are also the hardest ones to get a straight emotional answer out of. 6. He gets jealous but tries to hide it. This is the one most women miss, because he's actively trying to hide it from you, which means you have to actually look for it instead of waiting for it to be announced. Watch his face, not just his words, when another guy's name comes up, or when someone flirts with you in front of him. There's often a flicker there, a slight tension in his jaw, a pause before he responds, "That wasn't there a second ago." A joke that comes out a little too fast to cover what he's actually feeling underneath it. He might insist he's totally fine with it, completely unbothered, very chill, while his body language is doing the exact opposite of what his mouth is saying. Jealousy he's trying to suppress is actually more telling than jealousy he openly expresses, because it means he's aware enough of his own feelings to know they'd expose him, and he's working overtime to keep that mask on in front of you. Ironically, the harder he works to seem unbothered, the more it usually reveals that he's anything but. 7. He includes you in small, everyday moments. And finally, watch how he treats the boring, unremarkable moments not just the exciting ones? Does he text you about something random that happened during his day, for no reason other than he thought of you in that moment? Does he want you around during ordinary errands, quiet nights in, nothing special occasions where there's no event to dress up for and nothing to perform? Anyone can be present for the highlight reel, the birthdays, the big nights out. It's a completely different thing to want someone around for the mundane, unfiltered, nothing to prove parts of life, the parts where there's no impressing anyone, just existing together. When a man starts folding you into his everyday routine, not just his exciting plans, that's often one of the clearest signs that his feelings have moved past attraction and into something a lot closer to love, even if he hasn't found the words for it yet, because wanting someone around for the ordinary moments usually means he's not just enjoying you, he's genuinely comfortable with you. Bonus sign: he gets quiet when things feel too good. There's one more sign worth mentioning, and it's easy to misread as him losing interest when it's actually the opposite. Sometimes, right when things are going really well between you, a man who's scared of his feelings will suddenly go a little quiet, a little distant, almost like he's pulling back on purpose. This can look like him needing space out of nowhere, or seeming slightly withdrawn after a genuinely close, meaningful moment between you two. It feels confusing, because logically, if things are going well, why would he pull away? But for a man who's afraid of how deep his feelings are running, closeness itself can feel overwhelming. Getting quiet in those moments is often less about losing interest and more about him internally processing just how much he's starting to feel and not quite knowing what to do with that yet. Closing. So let's recap. He gets nervous around you. He remembers everything you say. He shows up even when it's inconvenient. He gets protective without being asked. He avoids talking about his feelings directly. He gets jealous but tries to hide it. He includes you in the small, everyday moments of his life. And sometimes he even goes quiet right when things start feeling really good, simply because it scares him how much he actually feels. None of these require him to say a single word, because love like this speaks through consistency, not confessions. If you're recognizing most of these in your relationship, there's a strong chance he already knows exactly how he feels about you, and he's just working up the courage to say it out loud. That courage might take time, and it's worth remembering that his silence isn't necessarily about you, it's about his own fear. If this helped you, drop a like, subscribe for more relationship content every week, and let me know in the comments, which one of these have you noticed? See you in the next video.